Welcome to SciTech Culture with Steve Kern and Ben Warner, where we examine science, technology, and culture in the 21st century. Visit our website at scitechculture.com. Well, we're fast approaching the end of the year. 2022 almost done and dusted, mid-December now. We've gone through all these floods and weather events and whatnot. It's been quite the year. Pandemic's still out there and we've had elections and all that. But now that we're getting closer to the end of the year, Steve, I think it would be good. I was actually thinking of doing this episode around sort of preempting a New Year's resolution, which is like about detoxing your digital life in a way. So we're going to talk about how we use our devices, and even like how we use our devices and apps on phones and things like that, only just to give some context of in this broader sort of discussion, and I would call it a movement as well, where sort of the proliferation of devices that started in the late 2000s then led to sort of this peak of social media use and extended use on phones, to the point where it's now become a concern that people are on their phones for too much time. To the point now that we need sort of these self-help videos to say, how do we claw back our time during the day that's being lost to the phone and all that sort of thing. Before we get into any more details, do you have anything to say on that? Because I find it's quite interesting that it's kind of a human thing to do, actually. It's like going through, sort of waves where, something happens, then the next wave reacts to it, which then reacts to it, et cetera, as it goes down the track as effects are known and that sort of thing.
Yeah, well, I think the first thing to point up is that, with our devices, they all now have a handy screen somewhere that shows you your usage, what you're using, how much you're using, and they generally give you a few clues as to what else you could have been doing with your time. And I think that's really a good time to reflect and something to reflect on. I mean, it's very easy to overuse your phone. I don't have any social media or a whole lot of apps that require me to look really often, but I still, look a lot at my messaging apps, because obviously I'm still in touch with people, and you realise, it's a slippery slope.
Absolutely. And that's probably a good place to start. Straight off the bat, I want to quarantine social media apps separate to just about everything else, because when I was thinking about this, maybe this is like me showing my age now, but having grown up, and it's a quaint idea. Like, I think the first computer I had in the house didn't arrive until I was 10. Like, if you think about that now, that would never happen. There's devices in the house from year zero, basically. So when I grew up with computers and then devices, the idea then was I would use them to do things, or to or recreationally, like to play games or do things like that. So there wasn't anything like social media available to really drip feed your attention away. That's why, like, for me personally, I actually think the social media component is the part that needs to be excised from your phone. That's, if there's one thing more than anything else, is just get rid of it. Because if you do that, you're probably cut your usage time down to 25% of what it is. When I hear things like screen on time of like 6, 7, 8 hours on a phone, I'm like, that's horrifying to me, because I've tried it. I can get to maybe 2 hours, 2.5 hours, but I can't go any more than that, because, and that might just be because when I grew up with technology and using devices and that's how I would only use them in bursts at a time, and then I would go do something else, like go for a walk outside, or just do anything else, talk to somebody or whatever. So, and I think that's important, just quarantining those social media apps separately.
Yeah, look, I tend to agree. I mean, it's people, we talk about how addictive they are, but I don't think people really think too deeply about how addictive they are. And the fact that, you become hooked into part of your feed. You're part of the feed that's fed to you, but everything you like, everything you interact with goes back into the algorithm, and it's keeping you in the loop. You are in your own little feed world, and it's highly addictive. And the interesting thing is I've been off social media now for 5 years, but when I first gave up, even for 6 months, you still get this urge and this thought, and it's hardest obviously in the first week, and you feel like you're missing out. But the reality is that as the time goes by, you realize you're not missing out on anything at all, and you do have more time for yourself. I mean, apps and keeping in communication with colleagues or friends and family is really important, and so I don't think anyone's suggesting that you don't use the technology we've got to stay connected. But I think people think social media is communication, but it's not. The socials really are just about like constantly feeding you or drip feeding you stimulation that has nothing really to do and produces nothing in the end.
Absolutely. One caveat. I actually do still have some social media apps on my phone, but that's purely to post our videos out. So it's, I guess, in a way, work rather than personal. That's actually a good distinction to make as well. So I like part of our workflow is that I have to promote when our latest videos are out and all that sort of thing. But that means I only look at Twitter twice a week for 10 minutes, well, not even 10 minutes. Because I already draft the tweets ahead of time, and it's just copying and pasting them into the app to post them. So probably the whole of 1 to 2 minutes I'm actually on Twitter each week, and Facebook to doing something similar. So the personal usage is something that I think is what really kills you there. Another thing that I think is really important too is notifications. Unfortunately, when you get your phone for the first time, I've noticed the default is that the notifications for all apps are on. And one of the first things that I do is I switch off everything except for the absolute necessary things, like, for instance, the phone app and the messages app, as classic examples of things that you don't get down.
It's interesting, Ben, because you're an Apple user, but in Android they'll just keep switching themselves back on. I don't know how they manage it.
But you don't need to see I don't know the latest deals from Pizza Hut, from the Pizza Hut app, or you don't need to see latest breaking news from CNN or whatever else you've got on your phone, or even just game apps that ping you incessantly for the latest update or whatever. So it's important to really get a hold of all that, because if you don't have your phone buzzing at you every 5 seconds, then you won't be looking at it.
Actually, that's a really good point. And one of the other things I've transitioned away from in the last 12 months was I used to play games on my phone, but I've given all of that away now. Got a Nintendo Switch, and I just play Zelda franchise.
And that's important too, because a good game, by the way, that you actually have to go or pick up a different device or go somewhere else. Like if you're at a desktop computer or something, you go somewhere else to play the games. Well,
that's it. Console gaming, you've only got an hour or so, to do it. You've got to sit down, you've got to make that time. You can only do it, and then when you're tired, you stop. With a phone or a device, if you've got games on there, you've got socials on there, and you've got all your communications on there, then no wonder you're on there for 8 hours, because you're picking it up every 30 seconds and checking for 15. So...
And that's the rabbit hole effect, where you start looking at all the other apps that are on there, and then you get lost in all of them. Yeah. The other thing that I wanted to mention quickly too was with because both Android and iOS are really good now with search on the phone, etc., and even things like app libraries and whatnot. You don't have to create home screens that have every single app on the home screen anymore. So, like, for instance, the way I've kind of done it is the apps that I regularly use, I cover 2 home screens, and then everything is just deposited into the app library. Now that's a thing on iOS now.
Well, that thing is on the 4th screen.
That's right. But it means that there's a section where if you've got some, miscellaneous apps that you might use once in a while, they can stay in there and you don't have to look at them. But the main screens have got the things that I literally use every day, and that makes it a bit easier to stay focused. So I've got a lot of my creativity apps on the first screen, for instance. Note taking, the camera apps, photos, and all that sort of thing for easy access. And then like the second screen might have some banking apps or Google Maps or whatever else that might be useful in that regard. I do have a couple of games on there, but again, I've chucked them in, like I don't highlight them so that they're visible on one of those two screens. So I have to go searching for it basically, and I find that tends to be a good way of doing it. Is like you can minimize the home screen experience so that it doesn't look like you've got 1,000 different things you could check.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, setting up your phone, not just so, it's easy to use and quick to use, but also setting it up, in order of priority, or the priorities you want to set for your phone usage is useful as well. I mean, turning off notifications and then placing the apps somewhere where they're not easily accessible. If you want to, keep in there, or if you wanted to say, well, I'll just do 20 minutes a day in a single hit or something, just taking that time to do that makes it that much easier.
Absolutely. And I guess finally, and I'm guessing this is kind of similar for you as well, but I find just circling back to the intended use of the device or the phone in this particular case, because smartphones have effectively become multi-devices, really. They've replaced so many different single-use devices and brought them all into one package. That I find, and this might just be me, that I still use it as like a, it's like productivity or creativity purposes, which is kind of how I've used computers in general the entire time I've ever had them. And rather than sort of that social media drip feed or losing, going down the rabbit hole. So I can where I want to do some reading, or if I want to listen to a podcast, listen to some music, or I want to flip open some camera apps to, do some shots and videos, and I'm doing one right now as we speak kind of thing. And that, it's like it's apps that are more intentional. You're going into them because you want to do something rather than getting lost in it, I guess would be the way to explain it.
Well, I think demographically, you and I don't qualify as digital natives, but the truth is, as early adopters, we actually are digital natives. And our history of technology was as tools. There was no entertainment, on our first PC, and as much as Steve Jobs tried to hype it up, I never saw much attraction or entertainment value in calligraphy. So, like, sure, you use calligraphy if you wanted to create a nice birthday card or a reminder for yourself or something using a Mac font. But, there was no entertainment. There was a bit of Pong and, some chess and stuff like that. But it was a tool. And, you and I have used our PCs and our phones as tools, technology tools for better communication, creating digital products, content, you name it. And you see now that really what the phone's transforming into is actually an entertainment device, and not a very pretty one either. There's a lot of negativity in having entertainment that isn't really of any value, and it's really like a lot of the entertainment we see on the socials is all sugar. There's not much more nutrition than that.
Absolutely. One last thing I wanted to touch on was, and I think this goes back to the point of how we grew up. So I guess our brains were wired to, in a way, to use these devices in this way as tools, as you've said. But then I worry about what's happened in the last 10, 12 years, and the kids that were basically born at the outset of the modern smartphone, that they've grown up with these devices just being there from the beginning, that it's in their formative years and that's how they're using it. And I know that this is like a whole other topic really that could be that we could talk on, but for me there's it's really concerning that their brains are getting hardwired in a way to be addicted to these phones for much longer in terms of usage, which requires almost extra levels of diligence to steer them away from that. And that's kind of concerning in a way, because there doesn't seem to be anything at the moment that would indicate that that's going to happen.
Look, I think there's a real danger there. If you grow up using these devices only for entertainment purposes, and you're in the routine from the age of 12 onward of just checking it whenever you hear a ping, whenever you've got a second to yourself, rather than thinking, you check and scroll and like. If that's all you know and that's all you become, then I don't know what that will mean for you 30 years down the track.
Well, it'll be
at least you and I can always fall back on our imaginations.
Well, I guess it'll be an interesting sociological experiment to see where society is in the 2030s and 2040s, when we're truly much older men by then. Let's put it
a generation of intellectual vegetables.
Yeah, potentially. While the two of us are sitting on a porch with a cane, like waving at them. Oh, these young
Waldo and Emerson.
Yeah, exactly. Oh well, on that cheery note, we might wrap it up. So hopefully some of that is useful. It's kind of basic common sense, really. Just know, if nothing else, you can just put the phone down. And it may be that one of the biggest tips of all is to maybe hide it somewhere where you're not going to see it for a while.
Very true. Good advice. And I would encourage everyone to, maybe just try for one day, see if they can get by without it.
Or maybe gravitate towards a flip phone for 30 days and try that challenge. All right, absolutely. Thanks, Steve. All right, we'll wrap it up there. So don't forget to check out our website, SciTechCulture.com. You can get all of our links and content there. You can subscribe to our YouTube and Vimeo channels, our RSS feeds, and watch us on any and all of your devices. And we greatly appreciate your visits and watches and visiting our website. All right, so that's it for this episode. We'll catch you next time.